I couldn't have curd for the longest time because they used to like lather it all over my body all the time.
And I say that because like your Instagram and the content you create, a lot of it is in Assamese. You are wearing a Mekla chadar today.
And at the end of the day, it's the law in me because of which I know opinions cannot be argued, facts can be argued. My dad was a very creative person, so other than his job, what he really enjoyed doing was reading books, painting. He wanted to direct a movie eventually in his life. He never got around it, but he always talked about it.
Hello everyone, welcome to IDEA Presents Break Free, a safe space to unlearn and overcome habits, patterns, beliefs, or relationships that don't serve our well-being or hold us back. I'm Bama Baldota, the founder and CEO of IDEA and the host for today's podcast. Today I have with me Samadrita Palash Bora, a content creator, a model, and a fourth-year law student. And I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me because I'm also really excited.
Yes, I know this is your first podcast, but you're already making me feel comfortable. So I'm sure you'll be a
Thank you.
Great.
Like, I'll take that as a compliment.
okay, so I want to start this off by asking you a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I think it's pretty evident where I'm from because I make it evident. But I actually grew up in Assam. I moved around Assam a little bit, but I was actually born in Silchar. I never went back there. But I am originally from Assam. I have lived there my whole life, born and raised. And I'm currently in Hyderabad for my further studies. So that's about my background, yeah.
Thank you. And like who all are in your family?
So I have my mom, I have my younger brother, and I lost my dad a couple of years back. So it's just the three of us now.
Okay. And you did your schooling in Assam as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. Everything in Assam, and for the longest time, I never thought I'll come out of that place, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
A lot has changed after that.
You say you come out of that place, but you carry it everywhere you go, and that's what's beautiful. I think.
mean, thank you for saying that, but I think it's because it's a huge part of who I am. And ever since I've connected more to it, I have been more comfortable with myself. So I think I would like to carry it everywhere. I would like to be known as the annoying Assamese friend. But yeah, pretty much so. Yeah.
And I say that because like your Instagram and the content you create, a lot of it is in Assamese, and you are wearing a Mekla chadar today, and like I think it's really beautiful to be like one with your culture, because I think what that does for you and who you are, and like being so self-assured, I think is incredible.
Thank you. I think it's a huge part of that is because I didn't realize for the longest time that I am as proud as I am of being Assamese. It's only after I came away from home, I started being a little homesick. Um, Funny thing is, I was talking so much about Assam, this, we have this at home. My friends were annoyed. They were like, so you gotta stop speaking, but like, it's just so much of Assam all the time. And that's when I decided ki they don't want to listen, fine. There will be someone on the internet who cares. Like, I'm damn sure someone would care. Like, even if it's just one person, I'm okay with that. And that's how I actually started my content creation journey. It's just my way of, like showing how much it is on my mind. And if someone resonates with it, if someone is able to relate to the experiences that I am going through, I think it is doing its job. So I am happy with that.
That's incredible. Is that your goal with content creation? Is to like help people like relate to you and like find their own self through that?
Pretty much, yes. Because growing up, I didn't have a lot of content or people to look up to. I always thought that I never really saw someone like me, or someone with my skin tone, or someone with my background being out there, or someone I could just relate to on a more personal level. Because even if there are a lot of celebrities, there are a lot of actresses out there sharing their personal stories, I didn't relate to a lot of people because they were not talking about or like having the conversations that were should have. I don't know, it's their personal thing, but I want to change that. I want people to know that it's okay to have really really terrible days, and to get out of it. So I think that's the whole point of it. And it's fine, like the whole point of my content creation, like this is how I look at my content creation. I am making content for my younger self. Like if I'm putting a piece of content out there, I start off like I kind of like think how will it help my younger version? Is it gonna make me feel more confident? Is it gonna make me happier? Like how is it, affecting me? And when I get that kind of perspective and I feel okay with it, that's when I put content out there. So that's pretty much how it has been.
That is so beautiful. It's sort of like content creations become a way that you're healing your own inner child,
Oh,
right?
for sure. For sure. Like I can actually tell you this one particular thing. So I was very conscious about my smile for the longest time, right? I was bullied in school because of that, and there was a time in my life where I changed the way I smile, which is hilarious now that I think about it. But there was a time. And the first thing that people started mentioning when did my content creation, it started picking up. They're like, "You have a really nice smile." And for the first time in my life, I got a perspective that, oh, not everybody is gonna bully me for my smile. Not everybody thinks it's bad, or like, that change of perspective. Ki not everybody thinks it's that bad. And yeah, like bit by bit, because of experiences like that, because of seeing so many different opinions of people, it really did heal something in me. So yeah, I'm very very grateful for that.
That's so nice because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of content creators talk about how, social media negatively impacts their mental health. And I'm sure, like, there is that side to it as well. But to hear such a fresh perspective that, like, it's actually helped you heal and you've used it for that for yourself is really amazing, and kudos to you. And so you said that there are obviously trolls and stuff. So does that affect you sometimes? And if it does, like, how do you feel?
I'll tell you exactly how I deal with it. Okay, see, one thing is I'm a person who's all about self improvement, confidence, this that, and when I feel good about myself, I know that if someone else is talking to me, will also feel good about themselves. So that's what it all boils down to. If someone has the ability to try to make me feel bad, they're already feeling bad about themselves, and I am not even gonna let that come to me. Like it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them, and I'm never
Yeah.
gonna take it personally. You feel bad about yourself, bro, that's your problem, that's not my problem. Like it doesn't matter, and at the end of the day, it's the law in me, because of which I know opinions cannot be argued, facts can be argued, and I'm not gonna argue with a dumb opinion. So that's about it.
Wow. I think what you said is, I think, no, if you're content creating or not, just remembering that others' opinions is a reflection of them than of you is so important as a lesson, I think, for everyone to learn, because it's very easy to get bogged down by others' comments and what others feel about you. But remembering that if you're exuding confidence and love and, like, all things amazing, then, like, whatever they say is them, not you.
Exactly. Like, I think more than that, it's this belief that I am okay being like who I am. I know I have some weaknesses, I have some strengths, and I'm completely okay with that. Some people might feel like I'm a lot as a person, people might feel like I'm really less, and that's their problem, not my problem. I am good, I am comfortable with who I am. I like to do life a certain way, and everyone is they are entitled to live life their own way. I am not gonna drag someone down or like judge them for it. So that's pretty much how I live life.
Your confidence is incredible. But were you always like this, or did you, like, did
I-
this happen over time?
I think both things are true in my scenario, because my parents, they worked really hard towards making sure that we build our character, and we have a personality, we have hobbies to pursue, all of that. They always made sure of it. But I never always felt comfortable with myself. I in fact spent a lot of my life hating myself. I was a couch potato, like, oh my god, I don't like this, I am not like good enough. Like I said those things, and I think for most parts of my life, I believed it to be true. I hated myself with utmost passion, and I think that's why I've been able to get here, because I had that passion to hate myself. I have the same amount of like passion to love myself. So I think that's pretty much it to answer your question.
What did the journey from what you said, right, to hating yourself to loving yourself look like? Give me like some like couple of days where you felt this way and that way, because I'm sure like you're making it sound like great and easy, but I know it might not have been that way.
Obviously it wasn't. Like I have dealt with so many issues, and the fact is I dealt with it. I never really shied away from feeling things, and that's thanks to my mom, because she always, she was the person who said that you will not be okay every day. You will not be strong every day, but you still go on with your day. You still, fight to live another day, and that's something I lived by. So even when things were really really bad, and it was bad, I had hit my absolute rock bottom with so many things going on in my life. And when I was really feeling bad about myself, it was a series of things. I had confidence issues. I had body image issues, and I would look at myself in the mirror and would want to absolutely change everything. And a one way through which I really gained a lot of perspective in life is writing my thoughts down. But throughout the years when I was growing up, we used to write letters to our parents. So it used to be like this in my family. If I'm upset, if I'm happy, if I am angry, I will write letters to my parents. I would like slip it under the door, because like sometimes in anger, frustration, we say a lot and then we regret it. So we try not to do that by writing those letters, okay? And it's a conversation. My dad will or mom will do the same thing, okay? Just slip
Wow.
it through the door. And there are times when in anger, in a conversation, we say a lot to each other, and then to make up for it, we'll write each other a letter. Or sometimes when the conversation is really hard to have, what we'll do is we'll take a notebook, we'll write our opinions down on one page, we'll put it down the door, and then he will write his reply on the other page. And it'll just keep going on and on, okay? So writing was a way for us to communicate better, in fact. Like I think words reach the other person a lot better when you're able to articulate it. So because of those letter writing, card making, we used to be all about letters, man. Like childhood was all about it. And because of that, I found a lot of peace, a lot of clarity when I started putting my thoughts down as a teenager, when I was in my 15, 16 years old. And I used to feel really sad at times. I used to feel really underconfident, and all of that. And I used to write things down. And what I found out by doing that is I overthink a lot. But the problem is I don't overthink enough. In the way that when you're overthinking, you are limited. Okay. But if you actually overthink it through that border and you realize nothing really matters, you shut it down. Like about a lot of things I've gained that
Yeah.
perspective. Like I'm overthinking, but I'm not overthinking enough to the point where I realize this does not matter.
From what all the conversation you had, what I can get out is your parents had a huge role to play in who you are today, and that is really great to see. I know it's your dad's birthday today, and he's no more. Like, is there like a memory of him that you'd love to relive?
I think my dad was my best friend. I think I have learned a lot about my own culture from him, and a lot of perspective in life in general. But one of the core memories that I have had with him is him painting. So my dad was a very creative person. So other than his job, what he really enjoyed doing was reading books, painting, and like he wanted to direct a movie eventually in his life. He never got around it, but he always talked about it. And that's one of the fundamental things from my childhood that I remember, that we used to paint together. And I've seen this man paint for 6 7 hours at a stretch just to complete a painting, and he would still not be satisfied with it. He'll come back to it again. He'll keep it. He's like, it's not done. He'll just be so patient with that one painting, and he's willing to go to that length to attain that perfection. Obviously, at times it's unrealistic to have that kind of standard for yourself, but man, he had patience to deal with everything, and it wasn't just his painting. So I think that's a core value that I try to channel from him. If I want to be patient, I'm like, my dad was patient, let me just channelize that patience
Yeah.
from him. So some stuff like that. He was a huge influence, and he still is. I like to I feel like in my head I have conversations with him sometimes. I'm just thinking, what would he say? But then again, if he would have been around, I think I would have been a very different person. And if you know losing him ending his suffering was the way of me getting here, I think it all happened for the best. So I like to see the bright side of everything. And when I was at that tunnel, I was going through that phase of losing him and everything. I never thought that I'd be able to see a bright picture of, like, what is the bright picture of losing a
Yeah.
mind? Like, there cannot be a good side to it. Like, you feel like there's this physical, this hole inside of you, and you're like, hey, what, like, life is just so pointless. And then I started to see the perspective. I started to see that he lived his life, he did what he could, and it's my turn to do the same, and carry on his values, his principles forward. So I'm gonna do that to the best of my abilities. Yeah, pretty much.
I wish I could give you a hug. Actually, I will.
Thank you.
I think the way, like, what I see, like, in you is like the story of resilience that is unparalleled, and it's really incredible.
Thank you so much. I think somewhere deep down, I think it's so. There's a saying someone told me a while back. This random woman I met at a mall one time when I was eating my food, and she just was on the same table. We started having a conversation, and then we found out that she had also lost her mother, and she was a lot older. I think she was in her 40s or 30s, and we were having a conversation, and there's something she told me that kind of lived with me ever since. When you lose a parent, you gain a god, because he's always gonna look out for you. He's always gonna be there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, or even if he isn't, that belief that he might be, like, it just is so empowering. Like, having your, like, he might not be physically present, but somewhere, maybe out there, I believe that he is. So it
Sure.
keeps me going.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Like, I know it's very vulnerable, and like, thank you for choosing this space to share that.
Thank you for, like, letting me, because I like to talk about him. I think he will always live through me.
Yeah.
And the more people know him, the more people he will live through. So
Wow.
yeah.
So beautiful. Like, it reminds me of this thought that, grief is something that, like, that hole in your heart, like you were talking about, is never going to fill up. But you're going to build life and experiences around it and make that glow. And that's, I think, what you've done, like, with your, like, memories of your dad.
I think there's a lot more to it, because that whole, sometimes it feels like it's filled, like, I'm just so at peace. And then one fine day, like, that whole wall comes shattering down, and it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a huge process. But through it all, I am okay being patient. I am okay, just being sad sometimes. It's just okay, fine, good. because the only way through your stuff is through it,
Yeah.
not around it, not a U-turn from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much it, because that vacuum, I felt it. Like I was like, this person who knew me for my entire life up until that point is gone. And it's not just I lost him, I feel like I was losing something inside me, but all of that has only helped me be who I am today. And that 15 or 16-year-old version of me could have never imagined that I would have a life that I do now.
Yeah. Wow. Speaking of the life you do now, I want to understand, how did law come about?
Actually, it's something that I have always been interested in, and I do like reading about law and like how to get past the loopholes and everything, and it's a huge field of work. So I think there is a lot to it, but then again, I am also really interested in other things. Like I think it's a very interesting field of work. It's just I'm trying to like navigate to which field I wanna settle in,
Yeah.
or like pursue further, because it gets confusing because there's nobody else in my family who's doing it right now, and I'll have to figure it out and find my footing out there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it with the law thing.
Are there like any fears you have about like the future, about like what you're going to do? Because I know it's very natural, like when you're in college, to like feel like very
I think I'm
confused.
having one of those existential crises every other day. I'm just thinking, what am I doing? Like, 5 years of my life, I'm pursuing a course. I'm like, just contemplating life, half a decade that is, okay. And what if, I am not meant for it? Or what if, like I don't end up being that hotshot lawyer that I want to be? Like, what then? All these thoughts do come in because it's just three of us now, and I would like to be there for my family. So what should I be doing? Should I be going back to Assam, or should I find my footing somewhere else? Like all of these questions I deal with on a daily basis, and at the end of the day I'm like, I'll figure it out. I have figured out so much shit. I will figure this one out, because there's this the reason why I feel so much at ease is because losing my dad was something I never thought I would get past, or I thought it would shatter me. I will never be able to have a life moving forward. Like, I didn't even think like it's a comma. I thought it's a full stop of my life. Okay. So if I can get past it, if I can turn that full stop into a comma, there is a lot more I can do. And I am okay with that. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. So that's what I live by. Like, no matter what fear I have in my head, no matter what doubt I come across, I'm like, I have dealt with a lot worse. I will be fine.
Yeah.
It's not gonna shatter me. If it does, I'll pull myself back together like I always have, and move forward.
That's a great approach. And I think I think I might be a little older than you, I'm not sure. But I feel like something I've learned is when you're confused and you're like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. Something that's helped me and something my therapist taught me is it's not as much about like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision, as it is about, am I making this decision right? Right? So it's like, it doesn't matter what you choose. Like you said, right? I don't know if I'll be a hotshot liar. You will be if you work on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's up to you to make that decision right. Instead of, and I'm sure you will.
contemplating. A lot of times if I have to like make a big decision and all, I have this thing called like the decision paralysis. Like, I try to push it back as much as I can, and like I get into the whole zone of not making the decision entirely, if I can like save that myself that confusion.
Yeah.
But I realize that it doesn't help at all in the long term. So I've tried to have a more head-on approach, because it's the time of my life when I will have a lot of life changing decisions to make, and I will have to get past it. I have to get past. And sometimes like, the thing that helps me make a decision is that there's this a lot of times I have realized that while making a decision, the problem comes that, am I making a right decision? Am I making a wrong decision? Compared to what? Right decision compared to what? Wrong decision compared to what? We are not like giving ourselves the exact picture we are thinking of. So, more than anything else, I have gotten this perspective that my life shouldn't look good to others. It should feel good to me. And whatever makes my life feel good to me, I'll make that decision.
Wow.
Because there are a lot of decisions that will look good, but like it's not gonna be as good to me. So I will have to keep my best interests in mind and make that decision move forward. So that's something that really helps.
Wow. You seem so self-assured, which I really, really like find very inspiring. Um, I'm someone I find it very, even though I live by myself and all of that, I find it very hard to spend time by myself without like distractions or without, being on my phone, watching something, reading something. Like, I find it very hard to just sit and be. So, how did you cultivate that?
See, the thing is, you have to realize your own patterns. You have to understand your own mind first in order to break through, or like have a, you have, in order to understand why you're doing things, is the way you can change it. So for me, when I used to keep myself distracted, or I used to, try to like just not think about things, I used to ask myself, why? Why am I distracting? What it is that I'm not allowing myself to think about or feel that is making me have distractions, because distraction is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, what are you coping against? Like what is that part of you that you are running away from? And what it is that you are scared to think about? Because when you're alone, when you're with yourself, you have to like have some sort of self-awareness as to how you're feeling, how you're doing.
Yeah.
And always constantly be in that mindset of asking yourself a lot of things, instead of having that conversation outwards. Because when you're spending time with people, it's amazing if they're good company and all of that, but it sort of mutes that inner voice that you have, uh, that you need in order to talk to yourself, because your voice is going outwards, not inwards. So when I used to be alone, I think it started because I was bullied, right? So I used to be that kid who used to eat a dosa by herself, and I don't like to share my food. So like people in my school didn't like that. Like, this girl doesn't even share food, let her be. I used to just have my lunch by myself all the time. So that's where the habit started. Okay, like it started with that dosa. And later on, I found myself just really liking my own company, because if you're gonna come talk to me and you're not gonna add value, I am very good with me and my dosa. Okay, like you shouldn't come to me to just make my mood go down. Like, don't. It's fine. Like, that's where the habit kind of started. And then I just found myself like just being by myself a lot and really liking it. How I see it is, what would I be doing other than this that is bringing me more value than this?
Yeah.
When I ask myself, it eliminates a lot of things. So I think that's what really helped me gain that perspective.
That's lovely. And do you still live by that, where it's like, if this is not adding value to my life, then I don't want to?
I think it's my core principle. Like, it's some people are scared of it at this point, because I have let go of a lot of people, friends, acquaintances. If they're not adding value to my life, they're taking it away. Because I would rather be spending that time doing something that's good for me. Because, like I said, you are who you spend your time with. So if you are constantly spending time with someone who's negative, who's whining, who is judgmental, you will end up becoming that person in their company. There is neuroscience backing it up. So if I am by myself, improving myself, and that's improving my life, isn't that better than being that whiny person that I become in the presence of someone like that? So that's how I really ask myself. I'm constantly like, self criticizing. Who am I in the presence of this person? who am I, what am I talking about, what are the kind of things that I'm thinking about in the presence of this person. Am I comfortable, am I not comfortable? And this goes out for platonic, romantic, any kind of conversation. And when you do that, when you're constantly asking yourself that, you start realizing that a lot of people are not worth your time, which you could be spending, doing something a lot better. I would choose sleeping than going out with a person that I might not like talking to. Like I would be okay with that. Like, what's the point otherwise? So I think that should answer your question.
It does.
Because that thought, okay, there's this experiment, right? Ki, who are you? This person asked this other person, ki, who are you? Tell me. Without, naming your education, your nationality, your name that your parents give. Series of questions. The person was just kept asking. And the person didn't know what to answer. Because it all boils down to the fact that we are what we think about. We are our thoughts. So what is on my mind is who I will become, good or bad. If there are negative thoughts, if I am constantly just thinking about robbing a bank, I will become a robber. But if I am like thinking about, okay, how can I improve myself, or like, my protein intake and all of that, then I will become that person. And I would like to be that person. So I think that's what I, try to figure out. There are times when in my journal, I draw my brain. And I draw it and I'm like, see, this is my brain. And like 50% of it is thinking about this. The other 50% is thinking about this. So is this how I want my brain to work? If it's not, then I pull out another page and I think, okay, my brain should be thinking about 10% of this, 20% of this, 30% of this. And if it's not thinking about it, I'll make myself think about it. So that's how, I think I'm very controlling like that. But yeah, pretty much.
That's very interesting. I've never heard of someone doing that, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think what you said actually is something I tell myself. So, growing up, like I had a lot of people comment things about like, see the way I looked or whatever, right? And for me, I would always internalize it. And I think after a lot of working on myself and my like confidence and stuff, now I'm able to see that like they're probably talking to me like this because they're talking about themselves also like this, right? And so they're not taking it personally, because otherwise it's very easy to go into that loop of like not feeling good enough and not feeling like you're pretty or you're beautiful or you're smart, because what people around you are saying, you start believing, especially as a kid.
Oh, for sure. Because it's not, you don't have that kind of clarity as a kid.
Exactly.
Whatever someone tells you, you start kind of like believing in it.
Especially when it's your family as well.
Exactly. There's no filters to it. So I had a very bad time with it. Like people with knowledge of medical science tell me that, oh, your mom should have had that liver syrup when she was pregnant. You would have been really really fair. I'm like, where did you get your degree from? Show me that first. But yeah, like I couldn't have curd for the longest time. I think I only started having curd in the last 2 years. I never let myself smell it otherwise, because they used to like lather it all over my body all the time. So I used to get like, I used to feel really bad the minute someone kept curd near me. I used to be like, no, I cannot take it. I just cannot even take the smell, because they used to like constantly be like, oh, we'll make you fair, we'll make you fair. Bolke, I never had it. Recently, when I moved to Hyderabad and all, they started serving raita with biryani. I never knew what raita with biryani tasted like. And when I started tasting, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. I should try it. But yeah.
That's healing though.
Yeah. It is. In some way or the other, it is, because I'm able to move past my experiences. So, for sure. And you were telling me about something around like your own confidence and internalizing it. I think there's a lot more to it than, because family plays a huge role in everything. And when you have that kind of support, it makes dealing with it a little simpler,
Yeah.
I think.
And I think for people who don't have it with family, to know that there are enough and more people around like you that can give you that, whether that is in friends, whether that is in like your colleagues, or even in like your therapist, or like communities like with us as well. Like knowing that there are support systems available, because we don't have to be, like you said, we don't have to be recognized by our experiences. We are more than that. And for us to be able to like make that difference and to able to see what is happening around with a distance and not attach ourselves to it is, I think, where like the goal is.
Yeah, because when you are in it, when you're going through it, you're not able to see that perspective. But the minute you step back, you're like, it's okay, it's fine, Shit happens, things take a bad turn sometimes. But how you deal with it is who you become. And that's more important than what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty much.
I think this is a huge lesson on not letting, our past define who we become, and to know that there is hope, that you can be different, you can be better, you can be someone who you really want to be. Not just who, like, people say, like, this was the circumstance I was given, I don't have a choice, but you do have a choice.
Always, life is a choice. Because when you let yourself dwell in your sadness, it it takes you down with it. So you have to be willing to help yourself in order to be helped. You cannot help
Yeah.
someone who doesn't want to help themselves. So that's what I have tried to do. I know that if I were to be that sad person that I once used to be, I would never be here. Like, I tried incorporating habits, I tried incorporating different thought processes in order for me to achieve that happy mindset. Because if you're gonna, sit back and let happiness just happen overnight, it's not going to. You have to take a step towards it. You have to be willing to get out of, your couch, your bed, and make that step, because you know there is a better life out there for you. So that's what keeps me going. And yeah, I have really changed things around for myself.
Wow. I wanna ask you a question that you were talking about before, that there is some test called Who Are You?
Yeah.
So if I had to ask you, Sam, who are you? What would be these words that would define you without like your job or your family, like, or what role you play? Like, who would you be without
Something
that?
on top of my head, I can tell you, I'm the kind of person, if you talk to, you'll not leave the table feeling bad. Like,
Wow.
that's something I can definitely say, because that's something I've been told a lot by my friends, because they come to me for advice and everything, and I just give them a little bit of my sass. I think they go back a little more confident. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something I think I am. You tell me what comes on top of your head.
I have no idea actually, like when you say it like that, but I think for me also, like, is a very similar answer, that like I know as a person, my intention is never going to be wrong. Like, that's something I'm very self assured about. Like, I would never do something if I knew it was hurting somebody. And if I see like even an iota of place where I feel like I can do something to make it better for somebody, I will always do it. And I think that's just something I live by, and like that I'm actually proud of, like more than anything else in the world.
I think that's a really good thing, because a lot of people cannot say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people cannot say that they wish the best for others. A lot of I know that, because something that drives me as well is how much I care, how much I feel, how much, to the extent I am willing to go for the people I love. And some people would look at that as weakness. But as humans, our greatest power is to care.
So true.
Our greatest power is to show love. Our greatest ability is that. So why should I shy away from it? Like, I am a person who has a lot of love to give,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give it no matter what, because I have, I have done that. I will keep doing that, and there's nothing that can change.
I think the same way, there are times when I've heard people say, but like, they're misusing like your care or your love that you're giving. And I'm like, probably because they need more love right now. and I have enough to give you, so why will I not?
That's so funny you say that because I have used those exact words for a lot of people in my life. I'll give you a small example. So a lot of times there are instances about like little kleptomaniac people in our hostel and all. Okay, people picking things up here and there. And there were times when someone I knew was a kleptomaniac or something. I don't know even if they're kleptomaniac. My stuff got stolen, right? And I didn't tell anyone. I was like, if they stole it, they probably needed it more than I do. It's not like I have like some like life shattering disadvantage because they took it. But it's very sad that I have that perspective over everything. Tomorrow, if I were to donate everything that I have, I'll be fine with it. Like that's what my friends say about Vicky. She doesn't care. Like I get a lot of stuff. I a lot of times I'm doing content and all that, and I just give stuff away because they probably need it more than I do, and it's something that I have applied in a lot of walks in my life. But yeah, because you have that kind of perspective, it's easy to get misused for it. And that's where I think knowing body language, other people's behavior comes in. It's important to be self-aware. It's also very important to know when you are being used by someone, or
Yeah.
you are being manipulated. So yeah, reading books help.
Is there a book that you recommend that you think like has really helped you?
There are a few books, and one of them is known to be one of the most manipulative book in human history, which is the 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
It's a really good book, and I read it because I didn't want to be manipulated. At least I should know when I'm being manipulated, man. Like
Yeah.
that's like the big thing. So I read that book, and it gave me a lot of perspective. After that, one more book that has really changed my life around is called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Okay.
It's,
What's it about?
It's about mental resilience. It's about this man called David Goggins, who is known to be the strongest man in the world. He was running a marathon. He couldn't practically run. He still managed to run it. Like he had some physical problem, but he still kept going. And he was like former Navy SEAL and all of that. So he just keeps repeating in his book how everything is just in your mind, and the minute you take control over it, there is absolutely nothing you cannot do. So that's something that gave me a lot of perspective, and with my journey with fitness and everything. So yeah, those two books, yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna pick up both of them. I'm very excited to read the second one as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for the entire conversation we've had. Honestly, I like what your friend said. I am leaving this conversation feeling like with a smile on my face, and I'm sure
It goes
everyone
both
listening
ways.
is gonna feel the same.
I really hope so because I had a really good time sharing all of it.
Thank you. So this is something we do with everyone who comes on the podcast. We ask them what's their idea moment. So what that means is, when there were times when like things were odds were against you, when it was really hard, but you persevered and you like pushed through and you did. What is that moment for you?
I think there are a lot of moments like that. But I would go back to saying my first solo trip was the big idea moment in my life, because when I had told my mom that I'm about to take my first solo trip with the money that I got, I had earned something, and then it was like the first big amount in my life, and I was like, I'm about to take a solo trip. She laughed off. She was like, no way, you're taking a solo trip. I have never taken. How will you take? Okay, that's what she said. I went to Lucknow. It was the one place my mom couldn't send any spies on me. So I was like, let's go there. And it was for my 19th birthday. My dad wasn't around. So birthdays are very depressing, like, because he's not around. So I wanted to change that narrative for myself. I wanted to feel good about my birthday. I wanted to fight to live another day, like give myself reasons to live.
Yeah.
And
And celebrate yourself.
yeah, exactly. I think I do a lot of it. But like, yeah, because all my victories are mine to own, and so are my failures. And if I don't celebrate them, who else will? But that's where it all started. And I think that one solo trip that I took changed my life. It changed my life. It gave me so much courage. It empowered me. I'm like, if I can take a solo trip in India as a girl, there's absolutely nothing I cannot do.
Hmm.
So that was a big moment.
That's so cool. I'm actually wanting to go to Lucknow as well, so I'm
Yeah.
going to use this as a sign.
You should. Food, clothes, everything sorted.
Yeah.
You would love it. I had a great time there. People are so nice. Food is great. And more than that, like you will feel at ease. People are like eating on the streets at like, 10. Women are there all around, and it's pretty nice. I don't think like that notion about Lucknow that people usually used to
Yeah.
have exists anymore. And it's an amazing place.
Thank you. I think like the last statement you made, you've like dispelled so many myths around like self-love, around culture and stuff. And I think you continue to do that with your work all the time.
I hope so. I want to do that, and that would be definitely my first goal. Like, I think I am here on this planet to live life, and I'm gonna do that to the best of my abilities every day.
I'm gonna literally leave our like listeners and viewers with this because there's nothing else like that can be said to that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here today. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for listening. We are gonna put Sam's Instagram down there, so follow her, keep watching our content, and thank you again.
Thank you.